This podcast is proud to be part of the Blueberry Network. That's blueberrywithnoease.com.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire, and you're listening to Transpersonal Radio with Angela Lynn Gibson. Remember, your thoughts upload your reality. Think wisely and always prepare to ignite.
Welcome to Transpersonal Radio.
TranspersonalRadio.com.
Real talk for real life.
Inspiring podcasts.
Exploring personal empowerment and
transformation
through parapsychology, spirituality, and how your thoughts upload your reality. And now your host, Angela L. Gibson.
First of all, thank you for listening. And a big thank you to my loyal listeners who have stayed with me throughout the years. Welcome to all you new listeners. I've been producing Transpersonal Radio since 2010, not without challenges for sure, but I'm proud that I'm in the 6th year of Transpersonal Radio and it continues to get better every year. I'm going to ask my listeners to do me a favor. If you find value in this podcast, please be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, or download the iPhone app or Android app. And please, share this radio show with anyone you think may find it helpful, thought-provoking, or interesting. Also, please leave a great review for me on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spreaker, as that will help the reputation of the show and get it recognized by a wider audience. There's a lot of work that goes into creating and producing a podcast and radio show. Here's the thing, folks. Over the years, I've had some really amazing guests on this show who speak from their core, who get real, who speak from a place of authenticity and integrity. These guests bring their A game, providing you with quality content that can really make your life better. So by telling everyone you know about Transpersonal Radio and getting the word out, these guests really can make the world a better place. Thanks again for listening. Hello, Transpersonal Radio listeners. Tonight's guest is going to share with us how we can capitalize on our failures to find happiness and success. Noel Rosos is a husband, father, writer, performance coach, and self-proclaimed failurologist whose mission is to help people understand, overcome, and capitalize on failure. Noel has been employed in the IT industry for 15 years. He started out as a call center agent and stayed there for 10 years before being laid off. He then moved to the education industry, where he became a college professor while still holding part-time workshops for professionals, teaching them graphic design and other computer-related courses. In 2010, he moved to the banking industry, where he became a manager for an information security group, and now and also the release management team. Today, Noel's passion and expertise is helping others come back from their setbacks and failures and be more successful than ever. He is a self-proclaimed failurologist, an expert on the subject of failure, having gone through several failures that he never thought he could recover from. 2 years ago, he made the decision to turn his life around after going broke and being buried in debt. Noel felt hopeless and helpless, almost at the point of giving up. Instead, he made a significant change, overcame his setbacks, and has since made it his mission to educate himself in the art of coming back from failure. He now works to impart this knowledge and wisdom to people who are currently struggling with setbacks and failures of their own. Noel wants to be a beacon of hope for people who are in seemingly hopeless situations. He wants people to realize that we only fail when we quit, and that everything depends upon us and us alone. Noel works with individuals who are stuck and struggling to achieve clarity. He provides hope and guidance in dealing with mistakes and setbacks to help people who want to live life on their own terms but don't know where to start. Noel managed to turn his life around by cutting his debt in half through a change in mindset by way of personal development and self-improvement. Now he assists business owners and leaders capitalize on mistakes and failures they face, including interpersonal relationships and leadership skills. He also helps individuals discover their life purpose, guiding them to craft a path towards their passion and allowing them to live life according to their desires. Noel, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am so excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Angela, for this opportunity, and thank you very much for that really awesome intro. I really love that.
Absolutely. Well, it's awesome because you're awesome. That's how that works. So we were just talking just a little bit ago about how amazing it is. You're in the Philippines. I'm in the United States currently, and it's just how fun that we can connect. You know, in today's technology, we can talk to people all around the world. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this wouldn't have been possible a few years back, right? I still remember the time when we call relatives from Germany, for example. We still spend a lot in collect calls. So now the barriers are not really barriers anymore when it comes to communication because of technology. So yeah, we just need to take advantage of it, I guess.
Absolutely, and it's just wonderful that we can connect instantly and share ideas and work together to really raise the consciousness of the world and make everyone's lives better. I think that's so wonderful.
I agree. Yep, it's better and it's easier to impart our knowledge and share everything that we know now in terms of the online world.
Absolutely. So, Noel, let's get a little bit into your background to set some framework here. And, you have a lot of experience in failure. You have a lot of experience in setbacks. So if you wouldn't mind, just kind of tell us a little bit about your story, how you went through sort of, because I think for you, I was reading a little bit about your background, and, for a while life was going pretty good, and then you hit a series of setbacks and failures and then sort of hit rock bottom and then turned things around. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yep. Actually, it all started around 2 years ago. Just like you said, life was doing good. I started as a call center agent, and then had a family, and then I got laid off from my work, and then luckily I was able to get a job as a college professor, and then I transferred to the banking industry 6 months after. Actually, I had an offer from the banking industry after the call center gig, but there was an unfortunate event that they had to freeze hiring. So I took the college professor job just to have something to get an income from, and then after the banking industry. Not much happened in my career. I think I got pretty comfortable, and I didn't. I wasn't aware of what was happening around me because I was just letting life pass by. I was letting life live it for me. I wasn't living it for my own. So it took a toll when we got buried in debt. I think. When you're not aware, you just go with the flow. You spend money like there's no tomorrow. I think the credit card was really something big for me. It was really a backbreaker, so to speak. And so, yep, it was tough because I can see my wife wasn't. She was miserable, basically, when it comes to. I can remember one time when she opened one of our bills, one of our utilities, and I can see the frustration in her face, and I was embarrassed for myself and for my family. And so I'm not sure if you watch some television drama where a person, for example, goes to the grocery, pays at the counter, gives his card, and then when cashier swiped it, it was declined.
I've lived it.
I never thought I'll be in that situation. Never in my imagination did I ever imagine that I'll be there. But when I was actually there, it really dawned on me I need to make changes because it was really embarrassing. And the problem with most of us is that when we meet failure this big, we tend to we tend to panic. We don't know what to do, and then most of the time, instead of doing something about it, we tend to point fingers and basically just wallow in self-pity. And that's what happened to me initially. So after that, when you fail, you try to look for something to inspire you, to motivate you. I mean, that's desperation time, right? So during that time, a friend of mine, because I was into podcasts before, but I mostly listened to comedy shows and stuff like that. So nothing on the personal development side. So one of my friends at work told me, maybe you need to listen to this guy named Joel Osteen. So I started listening to him, and it somehow lifted my spirit and inspired me to make changes, and that's where it all started.
Fantastic. Now, Noel, we know we're faced with negativity on a daily basis. There is a lot of tension in the world, a lot of things going on right now. We have increasing tension, for example, in North Korea. We have increasing tension in the Middle East. We have, even in our own backyard, of course, there's a complete circus going on in the political arena in the United States right now. A lot of emotions coming to surface. So what advice do you have for people who are dealing with negativity on a daily basis? How do they learn to see the good in others, the good in the world, stay focused, and not be sucked into the drama and the negativity?
Okay. Actually, when it comes to negativity, I think when it comes to life, it really depends on we really need to depend on ourselves. I mean, when I went through the difficulties and the setbacks, I think the key there was the change in mindset. And I think it's more applicable right now. Like you said, in the political arena, there's a lot of negative things. Actually, I think we're on the same boat when it comes to politics, because here in the Philippines also we'll be having the elections next month for the presidency. So there's a lot of mudslinging, so to speak.
So you're going through the same thing right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not sure if you've heard about the Philippine politics, much dirtier and,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when it comes to negativity, the first advice I would give is you need to have what we call intrinsic motivation. The first thing that needs to come from you is motivation within yourself. Because without that, I think it will be critical, because there's no hope. As long as there's hope based on the motivation coming from inside, then that's a good place to start. Okay, the external motivation will always be there. It will help, but you need to have a change in mindset, because the moment you kill hope, within your heart, and there's no chance for growth or improvement. So right now, actually, I don't really watch a lot of news anymore. I mean, sometimes I do, but most of the time I'd rather listen to my motivational podcasts or audiobooks, because the news contains a lot of negative stuff.
Yes.
So from killings to dirty politics. So
and often we know, I bet it's the same in the Philippines. I'm going to venture to guess it's the same in the Philippines. Certainly here in the United States, we also have to be careful of what we're digesting in mainstream media, because it's also manufactured. We have a lot of disinformation and misinformation. We're not necessarily getting the truth when we're watching some of our news outlets. So that has a tendency also to twist our reality and what we're thinking. And so I agree with you that sometimes the best medicine is to turn it off altogether and to really pay attention to our sources of information and what we're putting into our minds.
Exactly. You need to choose the right inputs so that you'll have the right output, right? So, yep.
Let's talk about forgiveness a little bit, because this is always a big one for people. And I know there are a lot of challenges that each of us experiences in dealing with whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's workmates, just people in the world. Forgiving others is really difficult for a lot of people. Talk to us a little bit about your take on forgiveness and advice you have in that area.
Well, when it comes to forgiveness, this has a lot to do with recovering from failure also. Because, for example, you failed. Okay, so for example, you are in a situation where you are aware that you failed. Okay? Now, without forgiveness, just like in our interpersonal relationships, without forgiveness, it's impossible to move on. So that's one of the things that I teach my students or my coaches is that you need to forgive yourself. Okay, when you encounter a big failure. Okay, first, of course, you need to acknowledge that you failed, but after that, you need to forgive yourself for you to be able to move on and change or make the change or turn your life around. So another aspect of forgiveness, because I used to be a vengeful guy. For example, if I hear someone saying bad things about me, I'm the type who retaliated immediately, maybe through social media or through one-on-one. I won't let it pass by. But I realized based on the personal development studies that I did that doing that won't really do you any good. I mean, call it taking the higher ground, but in terms of forgiveness, because forgiveness is the way to let you go from this mess. You won't be able to move on if you're still holding on to grudges or I mean, coming from experience, coming from someone who had a falling out with a family member. I'll just not mention who, but I did have a falling out with a family member, and it lasted for 3 years. And looking back, I think I might have been more forgiving if I can come back to that situation. I would have been more forgiving because I wasted 3 years holding on to this grudge, and it really didn't benefit me. I mean, it held me back from at least emotionally, I think. So when it comes to forgiveness, I think it's not easy. You're correct in saying that it's not easy to forgive, but just put in mind that holding on to that won't do you any good. You just have to let go of your pride and move on from it.
And I think you're exactly right, Noel, that oftentimes forgiveness is a practice for our own well-being and our own healing, because holding a grudge or holding that anger, holding that bitterness is quite draining. It's an energetic drain, and it takes you away from progressing in all areas of your life. So it is a situation where oftentimes we want to forgive, not necessarily because that we're excusing that person's behavior, but because we need to heal and move on for our own positivity and our own well-being.
Yes, exactly. I think the misconception we have is that I think we tend to look at forgiveness as doing something for the other person, but you're actually doing something for your own. It's for your own good also.
Absolutely. Let's talk about positive mindset as a daily practice. What are some tools, tips, techniques you would advise people to be able to get themselves in a positive mindset, set the intention for the day, and really change the way they're approaching life?
Okay, when it comes to positive mindset, back then, before that going broke thing, I didn't really believe in personal development. I used to term this as that motivational stuff. I really didn't, it was the mumbo jumbo. I think back then, and when I went through that massive failure, where did I turn to? personal development.
Yeah.
So I think the for me, my practice is that I have a collection of personal development podcasts and audiobooks. So every day when I wake up, um, during commute, I always have my earphones plugged, and then I listen to these podcasts, including yours,
Oh, yay.
Transpersonal Radio. So I download it regularly. So I listen to that, even a TED Talk, actually.
Yes. Love Ted.
It's yeah, mind opening, right? You learn a lot, not only for the personal development part, but the stories they share there has a connection to our emotions. So
Yes.
I listen regularly to those, and then I also have audiobooks. Of course, we have the staple, Think and Grow Rich, How to Influence and Influence People. So I have a collection of those. And actually, it really depends on you. If you're more of a book guy, the traditional one, the one that you actually turn pages. Because I'm more into audiobooks. So,
You're right.
but yeah, I think if you have these materials, you know what they said, readers lead and leaders read. So you really have to invest in that. Instead of spending time watching television, invest in a good book or podcast, because these will really help turn your mindset. If you do it every day, little by little, your view of the world will change. So that's my one of the practices I do. And then second is if you can squeeze in time for exercise, even 30 minutes,
Yes.
it's very important, because it releases endorphins, gets you going through the day. Then right now I'm actually trying meditation.
Excellent.
I mean, haven't really practiced it a lot, but what I found is that it's not only relaxing and soothing, but the silence actually helps reset your mind, reset your body. It's like in a computer, it's a soft reboot. So
I love
yeah,
that.
those things are my everyday ritual. Of course,
Fantastic.
the writings there also from the blog. But yeah, for every day, as soon as I wake up, those are the things I do.
I love it. I love it. So, and every one of those are so important. Meditation, exercise, and what you put into your mind first thing as you start your day. All of those all work to set the intention for how your day is going to go. It's fantastic. Now, let's talk about when things go wrong and you have a failure, you have a setback. So let's talk to people out there who are either currently in the midst of a complete crash, have just had a complete crash, a failure, and they're at the bottom here laid out. How are they going to bounce back from this? What do they do?
Okay, I do have a formula that I follow when it comes to dealing with failure. Okay, so the first thing that you need to remember when you meet a certain failure, you need to accept the situation. Okay, you need to accept that. Okay, I failed. I went broke. I broke up with this wonderful guy. Because as soon as you accept, that's the first step in the healing process. Okay? If you don't accept the situation, I think it would be difficult for you to move on to the next stages. So you need to accept that, okay, it's here, it has happened, I failed, now what will I do? So that's the first step. The second step is actually, it's almost similar to acceptance, but it's more of taking responsibility. Okay? you need to own up to that failure. Okay, regardless of whether it's actually you or if it's a partner in a relationship. Okay, because my belief is that for failed relationships, even if, for example, your boyfriend broke up with you, you still have a part in that. It's a relationship, so you need to accept responsibility for it. When we went broke, that's perhaps the most difficult thing for me. I wasn't really trying to take the responsibility. I was trying to put the blame on other people, on my job, on my boss. So you won't be in that situation if you didn't make mistakes along the way. Maybe some bad decisions or wrong decisions you made in the way. So you need to take responsibility, okay, for what has happened. So acceptance and then taking responsibility. Now, we talked about forgiveness earlier, so this is where it comes in. Once you have taken responsibility, you have to forgive yourself. Okay? You need to say that, okay, I made a mistake. Now, it's time to move on. Okay? It has happened. It's in the past. So just leave it behind. Okay? You need to forgive yourself and let everything go. So those are the first steps. And then once you have forgiven yourself, you need to move forward. Okay? So how do you move forward? First, you take action. Okay? Now, what worked for me during this time in moving forward is that I started practicing gratitude. Okay? You have to look for the things that you are thankful for. Because I think the problem with most of us is that when we experience failure, we tend to think that, oh, this always happens to me. Why am I always in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, there's a lot of people who have it worse than you. So,
Yes.
so the gratitude part is really important in the moving forward process. So if you can start a gratitude journal, that'll be great. I keep one also for myself because you won't realize how lucky you are when you don't see the little things that you are blessed with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the gratitude will be the next or the first step towards moving forward. And then you have to maintain the momentum. So this is where the daily practice for positive reinforcement comes in. So what we talked about earlier, listening to the motivational stuff, okay, reading, this will help you maintain that positive mindset. Okay, you have turned things around. Now the next thing to do is to maintain that positive mindset. You have to always be in that mindset for you to be able to go towards your goals. Okay. The next thing after mindset change is you have to take action. Okay. So how do you take action? So for example, if you went broke, just like myself, you have to look at your finances. Okay, look at what you have been doing wrong. Okay, during that period, and of course, the best practices would always come in. Okay, you don't have to do everything that you did wrong before. So, if you were, for example, kind of extravagant in terms of, for example, you always eat out, you buy things that you don't need. Okay, you have to change that. Okay, you have to do the opposite. So try to save as much money as you can, pay off your debt. Okay, so for other types of failures, like for example, failed relationships, okay, you need to invest. Okay, you don't have to um, blame yourself entirely for it, of course. So one of the ways to take action is to go out more. Okay, go out on dates, meet friends. Because the problem with most of us is that when we experience this massive failure, we tend to um, grieve a lot. Which is, I don't really see a problem with the grieving, but you don't have to grieve for a very long period of
Right.
time. There's always a certain time to grieve, and then there's a time to move forward and
Yes.
forget all of those. So
Mhm.
yeah, and then once you've taken action, you have to stay committed to that action. Okay, keep yourself in check. This is where setting goals comes in handy. So when you set goals, I think we all know the SMART goal setting. So you need to have that in place. And then what I tell my coachees when it comes to this process, the last thing to do after all these steps is to enjoy. You need to enjoy the process. You need to enjoy the moving on process. Okay? So how do you stay happy? How do you stay contented with life? Yeah,
That's
because
a good question, right? How do you stay content? How do you stay happy? And also, interesting that you pointed out earlier, Noel, is not just staying content where you become complacent and lazy and then you find yourself in another mess, but content where you're happy but you're still active.
yeah, you need to be contented, but you don't stop yourself from dreaming big.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with dreaming big as long as it doesn't consume you.
Right.
I mean, so then the need should always stay as the need and not be transformed into greed, because I think that's where most of us fall into a trap. So yeah, you need to enjoy the process of moving on, enjoy the process of correcting your mistakes. So how do you do that? Make the most of time, live in the moment. Okay, don't worry about the future and leave the past behind. I think that's a problem with most of us in terms of overcoming failures, that we tend to stay in the past for a very long time. Okay, we can't
Right.
let it go.
And I think one of the other things that you pointed out, Noel, is celebrating small wins. Talk to us about that.
Yeah.
So important.
Exactly. Yep. When it comes to small wins, I think what we fail to realize when we have a goal is that we're so focused in that goal that, for example, if I want to be a millionaire, for example, you want to be a millionaire. So you're so focused on that goal of reaching your 1 million that you fail to realize that every day there's an improvement. Okay? So when we say small wins, it doesn't you don't have to focus on the bigger prize. You need to also appreciate the mini improvements that you are undergoing. So just like for a change of mindset, okay, you need to realize that for example, during my process of transformation, like I said earlier, I used to be so vengeful when it comes to people trying to say bad things about me or judging me. So the next time I encountered that problem, I applied what I've been studying. So I was surprised that I was able to turn the other cheek and ignore. So that for me is a small win already. Of course, I have a bigger goal, but being able to turn the other cheek for me is a small win that I will consider, because the small wins will inspire you to move on to the bigger win. So you have to appreciate that.
Absolutely. And speaking of turning the other cheek, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the whole concept of dealing with difficult or critical people. So we find ourselves oftentimes when we're in a situation that we have someone in our life that we're interacting with, and they are extremely difficult for whatever reason, or critical. Nothing you do is ever good enough. So how do you go about interacting with someone like that?
Okay, what we mentioned earlier about forgiveness, I think you need to apply a similar concept. Okay, for example, because I've had a thorough experience when it comes to these difficult people. One of the things you need to remember is that if you engage, wherever you look at it, you'll always come out the loser. So, I mean, of course, you need to stand up for yourself. But when it comes to difficult people, you can see it from the get go that there are some people who are just out there to hurt you. Okay, nothing you can do will ever be right. Nothing you say will ever be right. So, when you meet these kinds of people, okay, the best thing to do is just to not engage, because you're setting yourself up. Okay, if you engage with this person, I mean, if you go one-on-one with him, fight what do you say? An eye for an eye,
right?
Tooth for a tooth. So you'll always come out a loser in that situation. So for me, if there's someone who's trying to make your life difficult, okay, you need to stand up for yourself, yes, but do it in a way that you don't go down to their level. You can always defend yourself in a better way. Just like, for example, during this political event here in the Philippines, the presidential votes are all campaigning now, and what do I see? They're throwing mud at each other, throwing accusations at each other. I mean, if you just focus on your platform, wouldn't that be a better option, right?
Yes.
Instead of ruining the other person. So,
Yes.
for me, the best thing to do is, engage them in a good manner. Don't go down to their level. When it all comes down to it, that they're trying to make your life difficult, just ignore them. I think that's the best way to go.
I like that, and you're right. Whether it's on an individual level, whether it's on the national stage, you're absolutely right. So defending yourself, but doing it with tact and integrity. And then if you're still not making inroads and this person is just wanting to be difficult or tear you down, disengage and move on. And when you say sticking to your platform, I think that's true even on an individual level as well. So what I say is knowing your character, knowing who you are, knowing your integrity, and standing in that.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about what you call knowing your why. And I love that you call it that. So we're going to talk about finding life purpose and knowing your why.
Yep. When it comes to knowing your why, I think I first encountered this, and I love it so much, from Simon Sinek. He was the one who quoted this. He has a book, Knowing Your Why. And it really, I really took a lot from it because, just like I said earlier, we tend to let life live us. We don't live life. It's supposed to be us living life and not life living us. We let everything pass by. We're very passive. We're not active. So, knowing your why will keep that fire inside you. If you have a goal, that goal is your why. For example, why am I doing all of these personal development and coaching when in fact I still have a full-time job? Why am I doing this? Why am I hustling? Because I want to help people. Because I want to spend more time with the family. Those are my whys. So if you stay focused on your why, everything you do goes to your why, then achieving your dreams, achieving your goals wouldn't be as difficult as you see it. And that's the most important. You need to be able to focus all your energy, everything you do, towards that why.
And I think I want you to expand on this a little bit as well, Noel, on finding fulfillment. But I would gather that knowing your why is a big part of that fulfillment and in being fulfilled.
Yes, of course. Because the first thing is that if you don't know your why, just like Zig Ziglar said, you can always hit your target if you don't have one. So, so you know, if you need to have a target, and that's your why. So, um, the path towards fulfillment, because we each have our own definition of success and fulfillment. For some of us, it's traveling around the world. For some of us, it's as simple as spending more time with the family. So you need to gather your thought and focus on that why of yours. And then if that why of yours is achieved, definitely there will be fulfillment. So if you just focus on that why, um, everything goes full circle. I think the problem is that um, we tend to just go through our day, work hard, do everything, spend 12 hours. But if I ask you, or if I ask one of my students, what are you doing all of these for? I get a long pause. so so it sometimes it's just recognizing, what do you really want? Actually, that's usually my first question when I have a client. What do you really want?
Exactly. It's what I ask my students or people who come to me for readings. I ask them, get centered and ask yourself, your higher self, what is your core desire? Because everything comes from the core desire.
You know, the question is very simple, but it's really hard to answer.
Right? Exactly, because you may think you know, but if you really start digging in, you may find, I need to define that a lot better. Now, let's talk about, for a moment, role models and mentors and why they're so important. Because another thing I find that people do is they may make a few steps forward, or they may come back from failure, and they may be feeling, I'm pretty good, I'm coasting through life, things are good, and then they sort of stagnate. And I think that's because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes people don't continue to seek out mentors or people to guide them.
Yes, definitely. This is the part where I always remember one of Jim Rohn's, this is one of my favorite Jim Rohn quotes. You are the average of the 5 people you spend time with.
Yes.
So that's how important mentors are. And for myself, this is what people are sometimes confused about. I want to get a mentor, but I don't really have the money for it. I want to get a mentor, but I don't have someone available here. Well, you don't have to actually have that specific mentor who will be one-on-one with you every time. Okay? Just like for me, I have several mentors: Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins. Of course, those are shall we call thought leaders that we seek their guidance for their teachings. But if you can, it really is a big help to invest in a coach or a mentor or a coach, because you need to have that someone who will always keep you in check. Just like you mentioned, we tend to stagnate. We tend to, okay, so I've done this. I've conquered my failure. I'm okay. And then 1 or 2 years after, you're back to the same situation.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. Because no one's keeping you in check. No one's telling you what's wrong, or no one's telling you that, hey, I think you're being complacent.
Yes.
So you need to have that person who will always be there to keep you in check and tap you in the back and tell you that, hey, you need to take more action because I think you're laying low. So that's very important to have a mentor. I do have mentors of my own also. So they also keep me in check because when we conquer our failures and we capitalize on our mistakes, we tend to get arrogant. We tend to get, oh, I know everything, or
Right.
I know how to handle this. But when we make a mistake again, that's when we realize, okay, I didn't know everything, so I need to get that coaching from my mentor.
Exactly. Let's talk about, Noel, some of the misconceptions about life and success.
Okay. Yeah. When it comes to life and success, I think there's a lot of misconceptions, particularly when it comes to success. First off, when it comes to success, I think my first question would be, at this point, do you consider yourself to be a success? So that's what I always ask, because we have different definitions of success. Okay? For some people, it's money. For some people, it's family. For some people, it's power. So you may not be rich, but you can still be successful. Okay? So that really depends on your definition. Now, one of the misconceptions is that we tend to think that success is supposed to be an end. It's supposed to be a result. When in fact, it's not really an end or a result. It's a process. So it's not supposed to be, if I achieve this thing, then I'll be successful. No, it's a continuous process. You may achieve one of your goals, but you are still in the process. Okay. I think the best definition of success that I ever came across was that of John Maxwell's book, The Success Journey. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but The Success Journey compares success to like a road trip. Okay? So the comparisons are really striking because, for example, he said in the book that when you travel or when you're in a road trip, you need to have someone with you. Okay? You can't. It says there that it would be difficult for you to reach your destination, okay, without the help of someone. So just like in life, we were talking about mentors earlier. Okay? It would be difficult if you don't have a mentor to guide you. Okay? And we all need that buddy, when we are in a long road trip. Okay, it gets boring, and you tend to get lost if you're alone. So, yeah, that's one of the things. And then, apart from the definition of success, when it comes to life, probably the best misconception that I've ever come across with is that it says that what do you call this? That life is fair or unfair. Okay. For me, life is actually both. It's not really a matter of being fair and unfair. Again, it depends on the mindset. Life is unfair if you are in a difficult situation. But then again, life is not unfair because we're all dealt with our own cards. It really just depends on how you play those cards.
Very true. Very true. And you are absolutely right. It's not only how you define success, but how you define failure and how you define what's fair and not fair, the way you look at it. So a lot of people would say, I don't know if you agree, Noel, but a lot of people would say, well, a failure is just an opportunity for you to reassess where you are, what you need to change, and how to move forward.
Exactly. Because I guess when it comes to our view of life, failure, and success, that really depends on what mindset you are in. Because if you are in a negative mindset, okay, you will find that life is unfair. You will find that failure is the worst situation you could be in. You will find that success is not an easy thing to accomplish. But if you are on the right and positive mindset, then it's a whole 360 turn. So for you, life is beautiful. Life is fair. We've been dealt with the same cards. Failure is an opportunity. Like you said, it's a stepping stone. And actually, failure is part of success.
It is.
Which is, I believe it, honestly believe it now, because you won't reach success if you haven't experienced failure.
It's true.
You won't know the feeling of success without going through failure.
And I don't think you can actually really grow or evolve beyond a certain point without failure. You'll I don't know, sort of be taking the easy way out, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what we need to change in our mindsets, because I think most people still nowadays look at failure as this really cataclysmic bad situation, where in fact, if you experience failure, okay, you just need to take that as a challenge. You need to make sure that you don't make that same mistake again. I mean, I read somewhere that Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the entire world, one of their requirements when he hires an employee is that one of the questions asked is that if this candidate ever experienced failure, if you haven't, then you may not get the job.
Oh.
Because, yeah, I think the experience is what they're after there. Because I think experiencing failure in life should make us stronger. It shouldn't pull us down. It's the opposite.
Agreed.
It should make us stronger. It should cultivate grit and resilience within us. That's most important. So I'm not saying that, I want to fail. No. Don't wish for failure. But if it ever comes in your way and you do experience it, just be thankful.
Yes.
Because you're building muscle.
Well, that's just it. Now, there's one sort of distinction that I'd like to get your opinion on. I read something really interesting the other day, and I can't remember the exact quote off the top of my head. But I want to talk about the difference between failure versus recognizing that it's okay to quit sometimes and change course. So a lot of times when people set goals, they think, well, I have to absolutely do everything within my power to reach that goal, and if I don't, then I'm a failure. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think sometimes when you set a goal, you may start along the path and then learn some things along the way and figure out, well, maybe that's not really what I'm supposed to be doing after all.
Exactly. I totally agree. What your assessment is correct, Angela, because life is like a game. You play the game, you win some, you lose some, and sometimes I do understand that it's difficult for some of us to accept defeat, but we know that it's inevitable. We know that it will happen. There will come a time that we have to face defeat. Now, I think the difference lies in that when you quit, because we said earlier, the only time that you fail is when you quit. But I think it's entirely different when you recognize that this something that I'm doing right now is not for me. I think I still consider that failure, but I think it's more of accepting defeat from yourself, because why try something nonstop when you don't see any growth, when you don't see any development. I think it's just being honest with yourself that,
yes.
Okay, I can't do this. I think I'm not improving in this, so I need to move to another phase.
Exactly.
So,
and I found a couple quotes actually around this that I was referring to, that I was thinking about. It's really interesting. So there's a marketing guru named Seth Godin, and he said, winners quit all the time. They just quit the right stuff at the right time, which I thought was it was an eye-opener for me, because I've sort of been one of those people that says, oh, well, once you commit to something, it's all in, you have to, and if you right, and if you don't make it, it's because you're a failure. Well, that was really helpful for me to come across this. And then along that same line, Kathleen Vos, she's a professor of marketing at the University of Minnesota, and she says, if you're pursuing a goal that is constantly frustrating, you will actually be less successful in goal attainment in other areas of life. So I thought that was interesting as well. So in other words, sometimes not quitting can be more harmful and hold you back more than just saying, you know what, I need to reassess and maybe do something different.
Exactly. I definitely agree with that quote, because I think the misconception comes in that when we define failure as you only fail when you quit, we tend to push ourselves to this particular goal, and we tend to say to ourselves that if I quit this, it's like failing. But actually, if you look at it, it's not really failing, because you recognize the risk, you recognize what's good for you, you recognize what makes you happy. So I don't see any problem with quitting, as long as you can see that it's not really going anywhere and you're not benefiting from it. I think it's just being honest with yourself.
And I think what you meant, Noel, when you said we only fail when we quit, what I took from that, the way you meant it, was more just giving up altogether and not trying anything, and I just give up, and I'm just going to lay here and give in to life. And I think that's more like quitting on life, not quitting something that you realize isn't really good for you, but just quitting on life.
Yeah, the difference lies in that when we say you only fail when you quit, I think that's applicable for people who, for example, tries a business venture, for example, and then at the first sight or the first experience of failing, quits immediately. I think that's what it is. But if you tried and tried, you failed and failed, and then it's not working out, then I think it's safe to say that you're just being honest with yourself and saying that maybe this is not for me. So maybe I'll just move on to the next stage.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that brings us to some practical tips to make better decisions.
Okay. Yep. When it comes to making better decisions, I think this is the one that contributes to failure and success. Making better decisions. Now, my first advice when it comes to making decisions is that before you do one, you need to be in a neutral place. When I say a neutral place, you have to be as your mind needs to be as empty and silent as possible, because you need to be objective first before you make that decision. The problem is that most of us, the common mistakes we do is that we make the bigger decisions and the critical decisions in our most emotional state, which is, my God, the worst time.
Right.
That's the worst time. So
true.
You need to be in a neutral place. Okay, you try to empty your mind before making that decision. Just relax and think about it. Think of the repercussions. Think of the benefits. Think of the people that it will impact, and then you make that decision. It's just it's difficult to make decisions when it comes to like I said earlier. You have to not be too emotional. You don't have to be at the top of your anger, okay? Because that's most of the time as ill-advised as possible. Most of the time we do our decisions there, make our decisions there, and we end up regretting it.
Yes.
So, yeah, you need to be in a neutral place.
Very good.
And then another tip when it comes to making decisions is that think about it. Think about it 10 times, even 100 times, especially if it's really critical.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's a matter of life and death, for example, you can't make your decision in a whim just because you thought, oh, I think this would be good. Think about it more times than you can. Okay? Weigh all the disadvantages and the advantages that it will give you. Because when we make these critical decisions, most of them doesn't have a rollback.
Right.
They don't have a back out. It's
right.
It's final. So you need to really be careful. You need to really be vigilant in making those decisions. If you have more than one or more than two options, it makes it more difficult, right? So if you only have two options, it's easier to decide. But if you have several options to consider, then you really need to think about it.
Fantastic. Now you have, Noel, a free ebook called Life's How You Live It. Tell us a bit about the ebook and how people can get a copy of that for themselves.
Yes, the Life's How You Live It ebook is actually a compilation of 20 of my best posts, I think for the first year of my blogging. I compiled that so that you'd have an offline copy that you can read while you're in commute or when you're about to sleep at night. So you can get the ebook by subscribing to the blog. Okay, you can download it for free. Okay, once you have subscribed.
Excellent. And for those of the listeners out there who really resonated with your message, who would like to get to know you better and what you have to offer as far as coaching and maybe just read your blog and get some information, how do they reach out to you? How do they find you?
Okay, you can find the blog at lifeshowyouliveit.com. And you can contact me through my email, Noel_Rosos at lifeshowyouliveit.com. You can also catch me on Facebook, my personal account, Noel Rosos, or you can also visit the Life's How You Live It page, okay? Aptly named Life's How You Live It. And you can also follow me on Twitter, at Noel Rosos. It's all lowercase.
Fantastic. Well, Noel, I want to thank you again so much for taking time to chat with us this evening. It's actually morning where you are, but evening, yes. Evening where I am. So again, I just want to thank you for being with us and sharing your knowledge, your insight. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I just really appreciate your time and being here.
Thank you very much, Angela, for the opportunity and for letting me share my knowledge to your audience. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And Transpersonal Radio listeners, if you would go visit the website for Noel Rosos and check out what he's doing over there. You can also download the free ebook called Life is How You Live It. And check it out. There are a lot of great postings there, a lot of great insight, a lot of great advice. Get to know Noel a little bit better. You can reach out to him on Twitter, on Facebook, his website, and check out his coaching packages as well. He offers several different options for coaching if you would like some more guidance on getting your life on track and coming back from failures. And I will make sure to include those links in the show notes on the transpersonalradio.com website so you can link from there. As always, thank you for listening, and until next week.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Transpersonal Radio.
If you'd like to suggest a future
topic
or be a guest, visit transpersonalradio.com. Call the hotline at 619-800-6057
or
like our page, facebook.com/
Transpersonal Radio.